the electronic music or dance music culture didn't sort of emerge until
no, the late
later
80s.
on.
Yeah.
So what was your first exposure to that?
My first exposure to that, outside of movies and TV and all that, was a place in Boston, which is long gone. It was a club called Venus de Milo, and Venus in those days, in the late '80s, early '90s, used to be on Lansdowne Street behind Fenway Park. That's where the main drag is in Boston. It's where Avalon, has been, Axis, and lots of other clubs, both electronic and not, have been on that stretch on Lansdowne Street. And Venus was different, very different from the normal clubs at the time. It was really going almost all electronic.
Really?
And that was, for Boston, that was pretty radical.
Sure.
Because Boston is in those days, it was a very meat and potatoes rock and roll, kind of town. And then this place called Venus pops up, and the atmosphere was like unlike anything I had seen before, at least in person. I mean, I'd seen stuff on MTV, from like New York Palladium, and stuff like that. And that's kind of what like Venus was. It was weird. It was weird in a good way. It was a kind of a combination between the Palladium in New York and Phantom of the Opera. That's what the decor was like. So it was because there were all these fake Mediterranean frescoes, up there, and they had these huge, cheesy brass chandelier things with orange flicker light bulbs in them and stuff, and the dance floor was top notch, top notch for the time. And I remember one of the early times I went in there, and I went up to the DJ, and of course I knew nothing about DJ etiquette, back then, because I was just a stupid kid at the time. I asked him, if you could play any Prince, and he said no. And I was like, okay, these guys are not going to play Prince. This is interesting. What else? And what I was hearing, of course, was early house music, although I didn't know it was called house music. Nobody in Boston knew it was called house music at that time. It was under the larger umbrella term of techno, because for lack of a better phrase at that time, because, we were uneducated at that point.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what did that do to you? Like, what was it that attracted you to that scene?
It was different. It was, largely for one of the reasons why I dove into the rave scene in the 90s, later, because I get bored very easily. I get very easily. And let's face it, the mainstream music machine, which is largely pop driven and stuff, I mean, for me, it gets real old real fast.
Sure.
And
well, it's based on repetition,
among other things, yes. And so I was just searching for different things, some stuff that was stimulating, stuff that you wouldn't see on television, or hear on the radio, or rarely hear on the radio, and stuff. And so Venus was the start of that. I didn't really frequent a lot of other dance clubs in Boston. I mean, I poked my head into Axis, now and then, but dance music at that point wasn't my main thing. It was still rock, and I had, I was just starting to go to college up in upstate New York. This was at Syracuse, by the way, way up in the frozen north of upstate New York, where there's basically two things to do: study and drink, and that's it. At least it was back then. I don't know what's going on up there now.
Smoke weed too.
Probably. We did, of course. That's when that's getting back to Pink Floyd. That's where we really first discovered what Pink Floyd and weed, what a great combination that was. I mean, just being, just sitting there in the chair and zoning out to Shine On You Crazy Diamond, or something like that.